Hi, and welcome to Debunk File. My name is Sep, and today we're going down our 5th 4chan dive. Before this video begins, I want to address a warning. This episode features quite a bit of disturbing content. If you are sensitive to discussion of blood, gore, or anything of that sort, consider clicking off the video now. This addition to the deep dive really isn't for the faint of heart, and features by far our most disturbing discoveries yet. Besides that, there isn't really any intro necessary here. All I'll say is that if you haven't seen our previous episodes, there's a whole playlist worth of fascinating and disturbing finds before this one, so go check those out too. With all of that out of the way though, let's just get on with the dive. For the first post on our dive here, we have The Mystery Sheep Killer. And well, let's just give this a read. Alright detectives, I'm gonna need an explanation real fucking quick because I'm starting to get a little bit worried. Part 1 of 2. Be me, live in rural Denmark on farm entire life. Own animals, most of them being sheep. Feels comfy man.exe. One night hear an absolutely blood-curdling scream about 5 AM. Words can't even describe it. Hear 2 of these. Feel a bit uneasy, but whatever. Since I live out in the country and next to a small forest, I'm used to hearing some ungodly dying screams of animals, so I didn't think too much of it, but shit was still exceptionally uneasy to listen to. Next morning, spot nothing out of the ordinary. Day after this, have electronic classes. Spot my dad dragging a sheep carcass through our back garden, presumably to the place where we bury the animals that die unexpectedly. I go out to check to inspect the corpse. He's right. Not only did the thing cleanly eat only half of its face cleanly to the bone, but it also devoured its tongue and its left ear. Pick is the pick I took of my sheep. I inspect the corpse closer in order to look for the death blow that killed my dear boy. There fucking is none. Whatever killed my dear sheep did not do it quickly. Snap a pick and check out the spot where my dad found the corpse. Get to the spot where my dad found the body. No sign of struggle. Okay, now I'm confused. W8T. All I saw were a few feathers. Situation around the killing is too unusual for it to have been one of the many eagles/hawks in the area, plus they never attack animals of this size. If it would have been a huge fox or some shit, it wouldn't have only targeted the face. A fox is the only animal in this part of the country where this shit would even be possible. Even then, it seems highly unlikely. What do you boys think it could have been? Yeah, I'm at a loss for words honestly here. What in the world could have possibly done this to the sheep? As you can see, the skin is just straight up gone and only bone remains. There isn't too much we can add on to here because honestly, we don't even know what to say. We definitely don't know of an animal that would kill a sheep this meticulously. So if you have any other theories in the comments, please write them down for us. For now though, we're just going to continue the dive. The next post on our dive is very short and very to the point. It simply says, I found this in the depths of NASA's high-res photos. Can anyone explain it before I never sleep again? In the photo, this appears. Pictured here appears to be some sort of extraterrestrial squid-like creature. I don't really need to explain why this is such a huge deal, but what I did want to get to the bottom of was, of course, if this was real or not. Because who knows, maybe this is some superbly done Photoshop. If it wasn't that, I wondered if it was some sort of smudge on the camera lens, but it seems way too detailed for that to be the case. Regardless, my first step here was to reverse image search it, and it's not fake. The original picture that the OP found is actually from the Apollo 8 expedition all the way back in the 1960s, and I was able to find a whole article about this phenomenon on cognitomatrix.com. Honestly, the article doesn't give too much in the way of new information, and actually gets pretty ridiculous towards its ending, but it does do a good job at explaining that this photo was actually quite a big deal upon its discovery. The biggest takeaway from this article, though, was a quote that it took from a Russian scientist in an article from 1997. The scientist stated that such materials for the same laws that enabled the birth of life on our planet may have been aggregated and involved in some form of life, adapting to extreme conditions such as those of the universe. These organisms are called Zeroid. So yeah, the scientist was basically arguing in favor of organisms being out there that adapted to the severe conditions out in space. And this photo here may be an example of that. I'm not sure how ready I am to say that our definitive proof of aliens in our solar system lies right here with this image, but I will say that it seems a lot more convincing than most of what I've seen. If any of you have any theories as to what is going on here, again, we'd love to hear it. The next post is simply known as the chlorine gas test. And again, as a quick heads up, this post contains some very disturbing content. With that being said, let's just get into this one. It begins with our OP stating that they need to test out a gas mask, and after that, they show that they are creating chlorine gas, asking what could possibly go wrong. Just a few minutes later, the absolute worst that you'd think of when seeing this happens. Holy fuck, it hurts. Might have to go to the hospital. Over the next few minutes, we get to see updates of our OP's skin quite literally melting off right before our very eyes, all while other users are in absolute disbelief and worry about what is occurring before them. The last post made was simply, "Goodbye, K." And that's it. The OP was never seen again, and in this instant, it's probably safe to assume the worst. As other users stated, it's hard to understand what was going through the poster's head when he was thinking up this idea, as chlorine gas does not just act on breathing pathways, it melts flesh, as we were very clearly able to see. I looked for possible articles in the sort about this in order to get some confirmation, and I was unable to receive that, but in this instance, there really isn't much of a mystery. Rather, what we just witnessed was one of the most tragic and disturbing things I have ever seen on the internet. This final post, for lack of a better term, is straight up insane, but off the initial image, it doesn't seem to be that much. As you can see, it shows a super blurry picture of some creature in the snow, and it just says, "Boy, I sure do love mutated penguin spiders." For 4chan standards, this is quite mundane and really is something you could find all the time, but when reading more in, it gets, well, extraordinary. The OP states that they are the foremost expert on this subject, and that their father was stationed in Antarctica at McMurdo Station. They end the first message by saying, "He's told me things. Y'all wanna hear some fucked up shit?" After saying that, this post follows. Some background. My dad is a doctor, was stationed at McMurdo for 11 months in the 90s, not saying what year because he was the only doc there and y'all could track me down. Frequently, we went out on scientific expeditions. First and foremost, there were some areas people just didn't go to. They weren't environmentally hazardous, they just were avoided for one reason or another. When my dad asked one of the researchers who had been up there for 10 years, he went pale and told him to shut up. It was about 30 miles south, 10 east of McMurdo. They took a 5-mile detour around whatever the hell was there. In the following comments, however, he mentioned some creatures that his father saw. Thirdly, there were the Striders. Big 5-legged things that crawled across the continent at night or in snowstorms. There were sightings from the military personnel there. Most of McMurdo was in the US Navy. My dad had a Polaroid of one of these footsteps and a track from one of the Dakars they had, and it was easily a foot deep into the snow that was already packed down from a 10-ton truck. He was asked a number of things, but most notably and commonly was asked about just how big these Striders were. According to the OP, these things were absolutely massive. The OP mentioned being told that the footsteps were at least 30 to 40 feet apart and claimed they were 7 to 8 stories tall with 5 legs instead of 2. Yeah, insane. There was another story he told though, and this was a very specific one. Like Morrowind Striders? I don't know, never seen them. KK my guy, so as I said, my dad was a doctor, got yelled at by a superior officer who said they didn't need none of you unwanted smart types around here. Guy was a prick and hated anyone who wasn't a grunt or a researcher. Let leak to my dad that he was the replacement for a doc who had snooped around, tried to scare my dad and shit. Guy was a total douche. One day, a guy who my dad knows for a fact isn't at McMurdo or any of the nearby bases comes in, escorted, with severe lacerations. He's told that the guy fell. My dad calls bullshit. The cuts were too clean to be ice or rocks, plus no debris left in wound. Guy's delirious, and while he's under anesthesia, starts talking about things he probably shouldn't be saying. Something about, "We let them loose," and "They were frozen when we thought they were dead." He starts to say something else, but the guards yell at him to shut the fuck up and gag him. That's right, they gagged a guy who was only getting oxygen from a mask. My dad flips it and rips it off, yelling at them and asking what the fuck they are doing. The guard sticks his M16 in my dad's face, forces him back to the quarters, and doesn't let him out till the dude is patched up and waiting on the next plane from South America. People were, of course, really entranced by this thread, as are we, but of course, many asked for some semblance of proof, especially since all there was up to this point was the absurdly blurry picture that the initial post have. Believe it or not, though, they actually gave some, in form of a plaque. It was straight from Antarctica with their dad's name on it, as seen here, and another item which has the words McMurdo Station right on it. This left us pretty shocked. However, the story doesn't even end there either. This thread was super long, but there is one more that we wanted to mention here, and that is this. I can't get it running tonight. I'm honestly really tired after work tomorrow morning, but my dad literally just woke up and I asked him and he told me something he didn't already tell me. So people die in Antarctica. It happens. It's cold and accidents happen. Every time someone died during the winter snowstorms though, he had to wait for them to thaw and sew them back together. Similar wounds from the person who dipped in the summer, except one man, another he didn't know, who was missing his lower half. This guy was carted in by similar guards, but not the same. His intestines had spilled out and my dad had to sew on fake clothes lower half after sealing up this guy's torso. They then dressed him in a battle dress. The official cause of death is hypothermia, but we both know that's bullshit. His lower abdomen from the end of the ribcage down has been ripped off violently. There's shit out there, Annans. You better fucking believe it. With these posts all wrapped up now, this was definitely the longest and most in-depth post we've ever come across so far, but some questions still remain. Really, the main question is, do we believe this? On one hand, the OP did what few posts of this sort have ever done. They gave legitimate proof that their father was actually in Antarctica. On the other hand, proof regarding the cryptid itself is still yet to be seen, besides that super blurry image. This raises quite a few suspicions. That image is very conveniently blurry, and while the OP did show a computer and claimed that they would get it working, since it had higher quality image of the cryptid on it, they never did get it working, which really hurts this case here. A lot of the stories do also give me heavy The Thing vibes, which definitely wouldn't help either. At the same time, I'd imagine it would be very difficult to fake these plaques from Antarctica. I mean, sure, it could be done, but would someone really waste that much time and effort for a little 4chan thread? I'd say that's unlikely. Maybe the father really did work at this McMurdo station, and the OP was just creating a story that they knew would have the luxury of providing real proof, thereby upping its realism. That's what I put my money on in this instance. But hey, none of us have been to Antarctica before, so maybe it really does hide creatures beyond our mind's comprehension. That's going to do it for this edition of the 4chan Deep Dive. This was a much lengthier one than usual, and honestly, maybe the best string of posts we have found yet on our dives here. So we really hope you enjoyed this addition to our series. Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure to follow all of our social medias for updates and exclusive content, all linked in the description. We would also love you guys to consider joining our brand new Patreon, Debunk Plus. For only $1 a month, you get access to videos early, exclusive content, and our brand new podcasts, which come out every week. At the moment, we are on episode 9. And of course, make sure to like this video, share this with your friends, and subscribe. As always, my name is Sep from Debunk File. Thank you guys so much for watching. Bye.